Good evening, survivors, and welcome to another episode of the Shattersong LARP Diaries. As ever, I am your host, Chris, and I am joined by the illustrious Amber. Reveal yourself.
Hello. Oh, sorry, revealed one too early. But hello, I am
Never
illustrious. That is
apologize.
me.
I'm going to apologize for speaking over you twice in a row, but no one should ever have to apologize for your grace and your presence. Unfortunately, that is the nicest thing I'm going to say today. Not towards you, I'm sure I'll be nice after we finish recording, but today we're
I
going to be
believe you.
talking about something awful, and that is Bastion. I do mean awful in the most Type 2 kind of fun way. This is a great LARP, we'll get more into it later, but it is gritty, it's sad, it's heavy, and as a result of that, I've got it in block capitals at the top of my notes to give an immediate Shattersong disclaimer, but also a bit of a content and a trigger warning as well. So there will be themes of death, torture, suicide, drowning, strangulation, cannibalism, hopelessness, starvation, and um, I think some references to genocide as well in this episode. So if any of those themes are not what you want to hear, this isn't the episode for you. If you are okay with that kind of content, welcome, welcome to Bastion, a post-apocalypse LARP that is, I would argue, the best LARP in the UK at the moment, and we're going to explain why as we go on.
See. But for our loyal citizen listeners, we're very aware that Empire has long passed, and we're still still need to get that podcast out. But that is also on the way, so that is coming. So stay tuned.
Definitely. Do you know that was only 2 weeks ago? It feels like,
It feels like
yeah,
a month.
yeah,
It's crazy.
yeah, and it's only another 1 to 5 weeks until the next one.
It always feels so long. It's always just, it feels over a month. I mean, 5 months is over a month, but it feels a very long way away.
Yeah, it does always feel like it's too long, too long. Oh my goodness, where did you come from? And then,
Mm,
still packing at 11 a.m. on the Thursday, desperate to try and get to site.
yeah, yeah.
So, Bastion style. I'm going to very quickly cover like, what is Bastion. This is more of like a broader setting of the universe and some of the mechanics. We'll talk about some of the kit to recommend, but we want to keep that quite brief because we actually want to talk about the story today, what's happened to our characters, because the actual it's like any zombie film. There's zombies and you have to survive. There's the plot comes from the characters and the interactions you have rather than if you look at Empire, for example, it's got a very thick, deep, and interesting political world around it. That is not the case here. So, what is Bastion? Bastion is a horror apocalypse LARP, loosely analogous to The Last of Us, where you've got a fungus that called Traxia 13 that has wiped out the world in early 2024 in game time. So that means when we go to events, there was one in November 24 and there was one last weekend. It means that this is still post-apocalypse, but it's not like everyone's descended into Mad Max at this point. It's not been a nuclear apocalypse. As far as we know, the world is gone, but the UK has become an overgrown, abandoned land, and it is filled with trackies, which are people who are infected by Traxia 13. There are a few factions in the game that we might touch on a little bit later, but broadly, there's a government agency that are definitely evil and running experiments on the survivor groups. There are some traders, there are people acting as bandits, there are cultists who kind of believe in the Traxia 13 as a second coming, and then there is you, the person going to Bastion, just hoping for a better life and perhaps a fresh source of water. Now, the mechanics of this game are very high roleplay, very low rules. So there's no hit points. You take your LARP weapons, you dress up like a post-apocalypse survivor. Most of the time, you've got knives, bats, hammers. You might have a little makeshift spear, that kind of thing. Um, the trackies themselves don't have weapons. This is a light grappling system. So the Trekkies will literally grab you by the shoulders. It won't be hard. They won't tackle you to the floor or anything. That's for you to role play and for you to sort of let yourself down to the ground. But they will absolutely jump scare you and they will chase you. So this is described as a hard skill LARP, and it does matter. There are mechanics in place. If you're in a wheelchair, for example, you're not targeted as much. People don't chase you, of course. But if you're on foot, you will be pursued by these infected. And they are, during the day, they can see you pretty damn well. And at night, they can hear you even better. And they really are quite a terrifying monster to come across late at night. Have I missed anything else there?
I think we'll get on to like sort of classes of people and the monsters later on, but I think that's a really good setup. It's very Last of Us, you're very right there.
Yeah. The final cool mechanic, I'll leave this to you, Amber, because I'm aware I've been talking for 6 minutes and 6 seconds. Um, what do you bring, like, camping and kit wise, and can you please tell people more about the unique way of getting into Bastion?
Of course. Well, I mean, so this LARP I felt incredibly underprepared for. You're essentially camping for 3 days, but it's not Empire style camping. It is brutal survivalist camping where you bring in what you can carry. So you start it's maybe like 500, 600 meters away from Bastion, and you've got to essentially carry everything that you're going to use over the weekend in. Um, so when you usually lug your big bell tent to Empire, there's no doing that here. We bought, I think, two camp beds, which you very graciously carried because I did not.
I was not gracious.
Um,
I was huffing and
it
puffing.
was not gracious. We had our sleeping bags, and then we had sort of essentials like wipes because there's no shower facilities, or toilet roll in case there wasn't any. Um, Food wise, I think we were a little over prepared because the fun you get from this is the survival, and they hide sort of food around out on scavenger quests. So you can get it, but you do need to bring enough to survive. So we had about 4 liters of water each, and then like tinned food because you want it to resemble, apocalyptic food. So we went to Tesco's beforehand, and I think you gave the best advice, which was just close your eyes and grab what you can off of the shelves because that's what you'd kind of do in the apocalypse. So we ended up with things like beans, macaroni, super noodles, not a vegetable in sight. It
Whoa,
was
garden
grim.
peas in fresh water. The
That was
objectively
your
the
own bad
best meal.
decision.
I love that.
I
That was
don't
a
think so.
fantastic option. It was both food and
Sure.
hydration, and it was healthy.
Okay. You're not going to convince me. Um, yeah, I mean, you can go for the garden peas if you want. I think the canned veg is actually a pretty solid shout, just not peas. Um, and yes, you just go. I mean, we had a friend who came straight from the Alps whose bag actually got lost in transit, and they rocked up in like shorts, t-shirt. I think they had maybe one like sleeping item on them. I can't remember, but they were just as unprepared, and they had a great time. So you don't need a lot for this LARP.
And that was
If
OC,
you're
by
worried
the
about
way. No,
that was OC,
yeah,
yeah,
Keelan
yeah.
literally had none of his kit with him that was meant to come with him. So he borrowed a sleeping bag, but was otherwise in the exact same clothes all weekend,
Yeah.
which is perfect.
And
He
it
had no food, no weapons, no like wet weather gear, which fortunately we didn't need because it was a scorcher of a weekend. But he was absolutely caught unawares in the apocalypse, and it showed.
very funny. I mean, things like medication, if you're worried about that, they do have like a fridge on site, so those things you can keep nearby. But apart from that, you're going in with nothing. And like we touched on, you start, a little bit out of camp. We were very lucky because it's the summer, so it was still quite light. If we did this in the dark, I think I would have turned around and gone home. It's really scary.
Yeah.
You time in, you meet your fellow bastioners. I don't know what we call ourselves, but you're basically getting to Bastion. You're being led by a lovely guy called Benny, who you've put all your trust in, and he is bringing you to Bastion. And it's kind of like a soft tease as to what the rest of the weekend is going to be. It really sets up the world. We won't spoil too much because it is really cool, but you have a few encounters. You do end up running for your life, um, but it's a really good way to meet your new player base. And we were very fortunate because everyone who started Bastion last event were given the chance to time in camp. So when we arrived, you actually had a really lovely party of people waiting to welcome you in, which really set up this community feel. And I guess we can kind of talk now about our characters because this is where we met the group that we were staying with. Um, so, Chris, who were you for the weekend?
I was Kyle, a
Kyle.
survivalist. I didn't think of a surname, and frankly, at this point in the world, it didn't matter. Um, there are four classes in Bastion. There's fighter, survivalist, or a scavenger. I can't remember which one's which. A doctor and a trader. Traders start with a few more caps, which is the currency. Doctor can do like first aid role play, and they can administer tracks aside, which is critical for you not turning. Scavengers are super useful for scavenging. Surprise, surprise. There's a little glow sticks mechanic for everyone else cannot see, but scavengers can, and they'll be able to lead you into what is usually absolutely a trap, but also has loads of supplies inside. And then fighters. Fighters are allowed to use bows and shields on top of any other normal weapons, and their bleed out time is 10 minutes instead of 5. You don't get any offensive bonuses. You're just harder to kill. And I really like that because in combat, one on one, everyone is equal. And it really is down to, again, your skill or your ability to have more friends on side. So Kyle was a fighter. I brought my longbow. We went to see 28 Years a few days afterwards. And it very much gave me that kind of vibe of this post
Yeah.
APOC wannabe Gondor Ranger kind of vibe. And it was a difficult walk in. The carrying the camp beds and the sleeping bags, and we had a little remote control car, and the bow and the arrows, and all your clothes, and your water as well. I mean, you had a big bag on you as well, a big heavy one. So we
Oh,
could
it
have packed
wasn't that
light.
bad. It wasn't that bad. I think it was I had the food and I had the clothing supplies. I looked over at you and I was like, I have made the right choice. It
Just
felt so much more secure. That if we get chased, I know who I'm pushing in front of me.
God, I'm so glad we didn't get chased on the way down. Just a flashback
Yeah.
on the first event, which I also went to in November last year, another Sterling event. It was dark for the walk-in, and we were chased. There was
Ugh.
even a flame. The only thing we could see with was a flaming car, which had a skeleton in it, just bubbling, and it was the most. Oh, it was
Yeah,
hellish.
that's grim.
Yeah.
That's so grim.
But yeah, that was Kyle. Kyle knew your character, who I'll let you introduce. But fundamentally, he was just looking for a hope and a fresh start. He wasn't evil. He wasn't. He didn't have any character flaws really. He was just Chris with a layer of apocalypse paint on top.
I was a nice guy.
Ah, thank you.
Um,
And
I was
Kyle, the nice guy, had a nice companion called.
Mildred Fossil. Um, Mildred was created like 20 minutes before time in. So she's the last of the fossils who are archaeology professors at Oxford. She's had a very cushy life up until the apocalypse, and she basically heard that the FCA were in Bastion, and Mildred, bless her, thought this meant the Financial Conduct Authority. So she was heading to Bastion to cash in some inheritance tax and was distraught when she found out that they were actually scientific baddies. Um, so I was a bit of a posh toff with my cap. That quickly became undone as soon as the survival mechanics started, and she was a medic. So I had the Traxicide skill and the life saving skill, which came in very handy on the Saturday.
Yeah, it was the little tie you had as well. It was like you literally
My
had a
granddad's tie.
yeah.
Yeah. It had a little Centre Parks badge on it as well from when we went to Centre Parks, and I was like, it's such a middle class kind of thing that she would hang on to.
Absolutely.
Um,
Memories of happier childhoods.
yeah, and also when you're creating your kit, that's a bit of a tip. But if you can squeeze in a couple of character themed things for like discussion around the campfire, that was really cool. We had one camper who brought like a nail varnish selection, and it was something that their character held on to, and that became something in camp. So if you can fit like tiny light things into your camp that enhances your character, you're gonna have so much fun. It's really cool to see what people brought in.
Yeah, lots of
Um,
different characters in Bastion itself as well. There's a gang called the Smileys, so shout out to
mm,
them, who are anarchists, and they've all got sort of sleeveless denim jackets with all the patches on. They've all got cool
it looks so
makeup.
cool.
Yeah, they're a proper gang, you know. The apocalypse was exactly the right environment for them. We've got a group called the Rangers, who are, I'd say, more serious survivors. And with a name like the Rangers, you could probably imagine them. It's lots of like tactical gear and camo and taking the apocalypse and hiding from it very seriously. Um, we've got our friends, our OC friends, who they started off the first Bastion as Black Scar, so we're all a social group that met at Empire. So they just called themselves Black Scar. They have literally been playing themselves. So Ben is Ben, Keelan is Keelan. So they really were just our OC friends who happened to be in the apocalypse. They've had a few deaths, including myself, last time, so they're very different to how they began. But they're another large group there, and then there's a few other like smaller groups of survivors as well, who vary from ordinary people. Some are leaning more into the apocalypse than others. Some are definitely there trying to build something. There was a small gang of scientists and researchers as well who are, trying to
Some
chase a cure.
cowboys.
Yeah, there was a cowboy, which was pretty
Mm.
sick. Um,
I think it's actually a very good LARP to come to, like as a solo LARP. I think I'd feel really comfortable coming by myself because you start off and you're almost immediately in this lovely tight-knit community. Everyone is so friendly, and there's not a huge amount of people, so it doesn't get like people don't splinter off as quickly as you would in like fest systems.
yeah,
Um, yeah, it's cool.
you don't have like if you don't work together, Bastion, you die.
Yeah.
It's very straightforward, and a stat just to highlight that at the first event in November, 2/3 of the player base died, and at this event, just over 50% of the player base died at least once. There
Yeah.
was one person who was the nail artist. She died 3 times across the weekend.
All in horrific ways.
Oh
It's
my
just
God,
such a
they were
bad
so
time.
bad. Yeah, that was yeah. So some really horrible things will happen to you at Bastion. So if you really like making characters and holding on to them,
It's not the
perhaps
lot for
this
you.
isn't the lot for you. You've got to be ready to roll with the punches, and sometimes it will hit you square in the nose.
Um, yeah, I guess we haven't really described the actual physical environment. So you time in a place called Driffield, which is an airsoft base. Think lots of rundown buildings, graffiti. The forest is overgrown. Bastion is it's almost like a set of garages or like
Yeah,
air
like
shelters.
vehicle maintenance workshop kind of vibe I
Yeah,
got.
and it's got like tire gates. You've got two entrances, one at the front, one at the back, which are always guarded. You have a lovely like guard rotor. Um, it's a little hostile when you're coming in and out because you're always a bit scared that the person coming in might have been bitten. So everyone's like, check your fingers, check, for bite marks and things. Um, but it's a perfect site for it. It's huge. It's like I don't know how big the actual place is, but
I'm
I
just
got
having a little
lost so
look
many times.
actually. So I'm on their website, so it's called HQ Airsoft in Driffield. I think it's over 100 or 600 acres. I think it's a 100-acre site, personally. And there are 28 buildings, which are like H blocks, that I think are barracks for 60 people. There are 60 houses, there are tunnels, and there are large open fields as well, not to mention forest areas, and all of this is overgrown and winds in and around each other. And it's not like a perfectly square site. It's kind of like a Z shape. So there is an almost linear aspect to it, ish, which means that a lot of the areas feel it's very hard to explore everything in one go.
I
And
don't think we did actually.
no, we didn't cover the whole site. And you're very much encouraged to go out and explore it. But beware, there's dangers out there. But yeah, those are the stats for the actual site. Sorry, Amber, go on.
No, so just to give a picture of what we were walking into. So when we got into Bastion, I think our survival instincts kicked in as a group where we were like, if we stay here, something might go down and it might be safer to camp outside of Bastion. So we found a little place to hunker down. It's where Mildred found her first piece of loot, which I was OC and icy ecstatic about. That was an Andrew Lloyd Webber Greatest Hits CD,
Hell yeah.
and I've still hell yeah, I've still got it. We found little bits of loot, but then it became very quickly apparent that if we wanted to get involved with plot, we'd have to actually stay in Bastion. So recommend that to anyone thinking of going. We then decided it was time for tea, so we cracked open. I don't know what we ate first.
Garden
It's kind of
peas
all
for
blended
Chris.
into one.
Garden peas and water.
Peas for Chris.
It was
Yeah,
great. You want
it
something
was. I don't
light?
know
We're
if
gonna
great's
run
the
around.
word.
We're gonna get chased all evening. Something horrible's gonna happen. If I'm gonna shit my pants, I don't want to have had a canned madras just beforehand.
Well, we couldn't even cook it properly. We had to depend on our lovely neighbours because the gas stove that we bought
Yeah,
broke on entry.
it got broken in the
So,
run, which is again very apocalyptic.
yeah. And one thing I this taught me is that building a fire is it's so annoying. It's lovely when you've got it going, but if you just want a can of garden peas or something, it's such a faff um to get going. So we had a little gas stove, uh, and then I think I mean excursions like they start immediately, don't they? So there were a couple of people going out already while we were eating, and you hear them
Yeah,
coming back with stories, and you're like, no, I am not leaving these gates ever. Um,
yeah.
because they're there you go.
I was going to say that that's a really good point. This echoes throughout the weekend, to the point of the game organizer on the Saturday evening is saying, "Please drink the plot juice we're trying to give to you." But what happens is, skirmishes or encounters are, let's say, radioed in, and they're so obviously dangerous. And of course, the game crew OC, they want you to go on them, and they want it to be dangerous, and it's going to be fun. But I see when you hear a radio call of, yeah, we've got a horde of infected surrounding a biker, but that biker's got 3 months of supplies, so we need a team to bust in, get it, and bust out, and you can have half. Nobody wants to volunteer for that. Everyone's like, fuck
Yeah.
him, he's dead.
Or they would be very late at night where we've been like exhausted from like the day's activities. We're like, if we actually get an encounter, we can't run away. We're just too tired. So you go, no, I'm going to sleep.
Yeah,
Um,
it's
but
the darkness made everything so much better and so much worse.
so much worse. Yeah. Well, I think we actually started off with like a town meeting with the sort of medic team. There was a guy who I was convinced was an NPC until maybe 30 minutes to the end where he was like, I'm not an NPC. He was sort of leading up the medical research that was going on within Bastion, and he called a meeting where they just sort of went over the objectives for the weekend and warned us that on the Sunday there might be an incoming attack from some of the baddies.
Yeah,
So it's our job.
this was
Here you go.
the big bad of the weekend. The This happened last time as well. Is there is a compelling event on the Sunday that we have to prepare for over the weekend, but it gives you some momentum to actually go out and scavenge and get ready for this big scrap.
So yes, we were told, to get ready for that, that we'd have to go and scavenge for things like bullets to help, with the guns that were around.
Oh,
And it was just nice to, we'll get onto the gun debacle in a bit, but um, it was just a nice chance to, like, again, meet the people who were in Bastion and come up with a plan for like gate duty or, we've got a little painting competition happening, so who wants to get involved? It was very community spirited. Uh, yeah, I can't remember what happened after that though.
yeah, because the system itself is 24 hours time in, but core plot is between 10 a.m. and 1 a.m. the next day. So you can absolutely at any point just walk out of Bastion and walk around, and in fact you're encouraged to do so. You might walk onto an account being set up, but frankly we never did, and at which point you kind of just avert your eyes and forget you ever saw it. But even at time in, there were little gangs of the Rangers and a particular hero called Dusk would just scurry off into the woods, and they'd come back later with stuff.
or sometimes not at all.
Or sometimes not at all. My God, yeah, there was a, I can't remember who, there was a pair of people who went out and we just never saw them again. I think that was the
Yeah.
Saturday evening. They just, they just never came back. But we'll talk about Saturday when we get to Saturday. But Friday evening, town meeting, dinner, excursions start almost immediately, and we start to hear music over the radio, and there are two loudspeakers in Bastion. It's playing, cool apocalypse heavy metal and stuff. I think this is a layover from the FCA. There was some reason that we couldn't turn off the speakers, and the game crew were using it to seed certain bits of plot, like radio transmissions coming in. But occasionally there was just the run, rabbit, run, run,
I
whatever that
still hear
song
it
is.
now.
Yeah, and this was the portent of doom for us. The rabbits, as we were to later find out, are a gang of cultists, not
Cannibal
quite
cultists.
cannibals, maybe cannibals, not sure. They were bad eggs. They were very bad eggs,
They
and
were
there
not
were
fun.
a lot of them. And they were gonna, they were part of the large army that were gonna attack us on Sunday. And what they start to do is start fucking with us. And this is where we talk about Bastion being it's hard skill, it's brutal. This is where some of the psychological stuff starts to kick in because they do want to sleep deprive you. They do want to make you feel under threat at all times. They do want to make sure that you know you're being watched. And some of the there's lots of graffiti. This is an old abandoned RAF base. There's lots of buildings, lots of graffiti. But what happened is over the course of the weekend, more and more of it became rabbit themed and
Mm.
messages like, instead of the sign saying get to Bastion, the Saturday morning, we found it crossed out and it just said slaughterhouse. And other sign changes like that really started to get on our nerves because it gives you this impression that you're totally surrounded because you are, and that if you're not careful, you will get got. And that
Mm.
starts right
You're
from the get-go.
you're also like sort of second guessing yourself a lot of the time. Because I remember seeing this one sign that changed one word very slightly, and I was like, no, 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 it was the same the whole time. And then I think Joe was like, no, that sign is has been changed. And we'd have times where we'd see them sort of peeking their heads through some of the windows around camp, but then you'd look back a second time and it was gone, and you're like, oh, it's maybe I'm just seeing things. So your mind starts playing tricks on you, especially at night when it gets dark, which we'll get onto. I think the biggest threat we all felt the Friday night was the big tier four
Oh my
that
God, yeah. Oh,
we saw.
yeah. After dinner, just when we thought, right, we'll digest this and go out, the first Bastion encounter begins. This is a bunch of trackies start to attack the gate, and this is just to shit us up. We're not really in too much danger because we have a Bastion has walls around it, so it's literally a fortified position. Doesn't stop the trackies from fucking trying. And a horde of them run to the gates and like blah, 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 just smashing down on it and trying to get through. We're poking them with spears and stuff. Then we head outside to kind of cut off their ears because if you handed an ear, you get a bottle cap, which is valuable. This was, of course, bait because lurking in the trees was a tier 4. And for those of you who don't understand what the tier system is, because we haven't told you, tier 1 is a recently infected. It's just a normal human who is infected with Traxia. They can infect you. Sometimes it varies a decent chunk, but they're pretty fresh. Their eyes still work, so they can see you, which is a major problem. Tier 2s are ones that have had Traxia for a few months, so their skin have started to rot. They're a little bit slower, but they're a lot tougher, and their hearing is their primary sense rather than their sight. These are usually represented with a mask or like heavier phys reps on the actual crew member. A tier 3 is a bit like an ogre, and I think realistically, what we saw was technically a tier 3, even though we called it a tier 4. It's something that's bigger than a human, or it's got some kind of awful upgrade that makes it even harder to deal with. And then a tier 4 is more like an ecosystem. So it might be, a former tier 3 that's now sunk into a basement, grown tendrils, maybe grown a spore, like a spore tower, and is starting to almost terraform and infect the local area. We haven't seen any tiers beyond that just yet, but I'm pretty sure there will be. But yeah, this particular tier three, how would you describe it, Amber? Did you lay eyes on it?
It's kind of, it reminds me a little bit of your like Dryad Warhammer models, where there's like one really long arm that's quite tendrily and sort of viney, and then the rest of it is like almost a really disfigured human. So it was very tall, but it just had one really long arm, that I imagine can probably swipe and do terrible things. And it was very fast. It was one of those things that would run sort of across the path instead of coming straight at you. It would run into the woods, hide, and you just knew that whatever its next move was going to end in you dying. And I think there was a group ahead of us that chased it into one of the buildings that was all built up and had various like barricades in it, and we chased it in there. And I remember I think I made a couple enemies with this bit because everyone was really on edge, and I was like, oh, it'd be really funny if I just like kicked this tin. And then I kicked it, and everyone jumped, and it was really funny. But we ended up not finding it because I think it ran into the forest and was just watching us.
Yep,
Um,
it was.
and we then just made the executive decision. This isn't worth it. It's night one. The gate is right there. Let's go. Let's not
Yep.
hang around.
Yeah, this is less than what, 30 meters, 20 meters from the camp. And the thing is, we'd pushed this thing out, and I say push, it was almost certainly baiting us in, but it was now at the
Yeah.
only crossroad out of Bastion. So Bastion's kind of like a teardrop shape. The only way out is at the top of that teardrop. And there was now a tier three, which was clearly, rather than being some kind of like ogre or bruiser type that we saw at the first event, this was an ambush predator at the crossroads, the only way in and out. So
Yeah.
we ignored that
It's
terrible scenario and went
We
home.
did. It's important to say as well at this point we don't have any of the tractor side, like the stuff that
Oh
helps
gosh,
cure
yes.
the cuts because you guys decided to blow it up last event. Um, so at the minute we don't have any cure. So if we do get infected, it's curtains. So there's no point risking our lives at this point.
Yeah, if we get bitten, I think the mechanics
Mm.
are, if you get downed in combat, you've got 5 minutes to bleed out. Fighters have 10. If you're not downed, slash, you get medical aid, and you've still been bitten, you've got 15 minutes to get decommed. And then after 15 minutes, they can't help you. It's too late. The fungus will have infected too much of your body. And then after that
And
15 minutes, you have up to an hour to turn at the least
yeah.
opportune moment for your friends, is how the game organizer described it.
When I first heard the 15-minute rule, I was like, oh, that's plenty of time. But when you're on the other side of the bastion, like of the like the other side of the site, and you've got to run as fast as you can through like forest terrains and buildings, that 15 minutes vanishes. And I think it happened a couple times to us across the weekend
Oh, after the
where we
church
had some
fight?
close calls. Oh my
Gosh.
gosh, I've never run through fast in my
Yeah.
life.
Like a half-kilometer run with about 15 of us who'd been bitten, and we realised, crikey, we've probably got 5 minutes before we start to turn. Well, before it's too late and we would turn. So we all had to literally, in a pack, sprint back to Bastion, and we were so lucky that there were no other like trackies hiding in the woods or any bandits or anything, because they would have just got us dead.
Yeah. And the great thing about this system is that the crew have so much freedom on creating encounters for players. So you'd have like the big plot points that had been seeded, but you could also just wander out into the forest and, there were a couple of crew pretending to be Traxia, so immediate danger. But what that did was even if there were no crew in the forest, you still were constantly aware, like you just knew something could be out there. So they could have maybe left that forest abandoned for like 4 hours and we still would have been really scared walking around. And I think after the tier three, that's kind of what we did. We scouted and we sort of started poking around in some buildings.
Yeah, we
It
had to
started getting
blood you
really
in as a
dark.
new player.
Yeah. Yeah. It is like a weird hazing where it was also where I learned about like light discipline because in my head I was like, I don't have a torch, I'm so screwed. But the people with torches seemed far worse off because when they switched them off, they just couldn't adjust as quickly. Um, so yeah, I that was a real shock for me on the Friday night. It's just how much you can actually do in the dark. Um,
Yeah, it was
it was
a
cool.
constant problem at the first event, and it was a constant problem this time around. But I think it got better over the weekend. Not deliberately. It's because those players died. Um, if you have a torch at night, you can be seen from kilometers away, and the
Mm,
infected can see you just as easily as anybody else, let alone bandits. So if you go around with a torch lighting up buildings, everyone knows where you are, and they will be attracted to you. And if you've ended up in the top floor of a building and there's infected on the staircase, it's over.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's it's really scary.
Yeah. But
I remember. Sorry.
no, go on. I was just getting excited and scared at the same time.
No, I mean I remember when I arrived on site with you and we drove in, I immediately like text all the girls like I'm coming home. This is so scary. Like, and then when it got dark, it was just as bad. Um, I think after the sort of poking around the forest, we did return to camp. But it was only I think maybe like 12 o'clock, so we knew the plot was still going to be happening, and we were approached by a couple NPCs. Uh, and this is where I think the terror began for us as a group.
The bear trap incident.
The bear trap.
Amber, would you like to tell our dear listeners about the bear trap incident?
So we're all sat around our lovely fire, and we're approached by two definitely trustworthy men, who come up and they're asking for people to basically come with them because I think it was they found loot in a building, um, but they were too scared to go by themselves. And they had gone up to multiple groups who were far wiser than we were and had sort of said to these guys, "We don't trust you. We'll either not go at all or go by ourselves." We were the opposite, and we decided to follow these guys out. And they led us to uh, almost like it was like a car park that had a boat, like a burnt out boat in the front. There was some like pieces of wood that were just it was like a bit of a mine trap. But
Yeah.
then there was a house.
It was, yeah, the whole
Um,
barracks block. It's a big one. It's got a full
yeah,
second
it's huge.
story, and oh god, yeah. I think that used to house like 60 to 100 people. It's
I wouldn't be
huge.
surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Um, as we were walking with them, we heard the Smileys getting absolutely terrorized by something in a nearby like building
Yeah.
block, and we swiftly just moved on. We were
Just left
like,
them to
they can deal
die.
with that. We just leave
Yeah.
them. We're like that. Whatever's going on over there is not worth
Yeah.
it.
There was a few flashes of
Um,
light, and they were like, "Who's that?" And then just sounds of fighting, and we just scuttled away.
yeah. Um, and
Oh god.
it was really funny because our the two NPCs that were with us were they were improving, but it was we should have turned around. They were so untrustworthy. All the warning signs were there, and they essentially there'd been reports earlier in the day of muggings happening to people going out, and we knew there were a few untrustworthy people around, but for some reason these guys were leading us to a haven of I don't know loot or something. We get to this house, and in the middle of the doorway is a bear trap. And they're like, "Oh, be careful. This is clearly fine." And we sort of split up into people who go into the house and people who guard
Stay
the
downstairs at
front
the bottom of
door.
the staircase.
Yeah, I mean, cowards. We were cowards. We were not going in
No, we
that
were
building.
sentries, and
Um,
we were doing a very
but
important
someone's got
job.
to watch the door.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I think two members of our party went upstairs with the guys, and it was our sort of trap disablers. So they had to go up and I don't really know what they did. I didn't hear anything because they were so quiet.
Yeah.
Um,
From what I understood, it was they went up with some of our scabs. I think there was like eight of us in total because it was you, me, Joe, and Alex downstairs. Spider
yeah,
went
and
upstairs with
Keelan, I think.
Keelan and Phil because Phil was just constantly saying, "Let's just kill him and run. Let's just kill him and run." And I'm
Yeah,
like, "No,
he
Phil,
was probably the smartest.
no, we need the game crew who are clearly game crew to show us where the loot is so we can get ambushed on the road." Um, but something seven or eight of us, three of them go upstairs, and what I heard was that apparently the NPC started to get like really funny, and like they're trying to make a bit of noise and things like that
Mm.
because this next part won't surprise any of you. And suddenly there's this Trekkies are starting to show up outside, and we are deathly silent. And they're just walking around the building. They've got, they're shuffling a little bit loudly just so we know they're definitely there. But it's dark at this point. We have no torches on, and you just hear this like grr, grr, shuffle, 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 and they're starting to surround the building. And they're just like sort of looking in through the windows, and we have our backs to the wall, and we can literally hear them like growling a little bit and like making clicking noises, maybe within 12 inches of our ears. Like it is utterly terrifying on the bottom floor.
Pretty scary. And there's also bear traps throughout the house. There's also I don't know if the crew did this or if this is from the previous like events, but there's strings of cans hanging from doorway entrances and just things that are purposely there to make noise if you brush into them in the dark. And I think that happened a couple times upstairs, and we thought this is it, the Traxia have heard. What they did hear though was our NPC friends who decided that that was the exact moment that they were going to start making loads of noise. Um, and I don't know if they were hoping for us to get killed so they could take the loot, or if they just wanted us dead. But they nearly very much got what they wanted.
They really did. I don't know what happened upstairs, but I think they broadly did it because the infected just fuck off because we are deathly silent. And on an OC note, the it's like any horror LARP. The infected are there to scare you, and if you fuck up, they will punish it by attacking you. But if you're silent, you're probably going to be okay. And if you're wearing camouflage, even better. However, our group upstairs slowly come down. They couldn't find whatever they were looking for, and as they're stepping out, one of our friends steps on a bear trap and starts to scream. It's at that point where all hell breaks loose. I think a bunch of you bolt out the front door. He's screaming about the bear trap. His friend is like, oh shit, come on, let's go. We've got to get out of here, got to get out of here." And most people manage to get out. I think one infected bursts in downstairs and we just job it. And the rest of
Yeah,
you start
we
hightailing back to
sprinted.
Bastion.
Yeah, we were not hanging around. It's very much one of those laps when every man gets left behind, because you don't know if they've been bitten.
Yeah,
So I think there's like five of us completely start sprinting. We
yep.
go past the building. The Smileys are still getting mauled by something. We don't hang around, and we get back. I don't know if actually no,
It was
because
different
halfway
for me.
through,
Yeah,
one of the NPCs actually yeah, one of the NPCs did get bitten, and they came up to us, and we had to put him down. Um, like, I remember him coming back, so they must have left the building and come back at some point,
yeah.
um, in between us deciding to leg it.
Yeah, so there's a second half to this. So I'm in a little room that is definitely formerly a toilet. I can't get out when all of this kicks off.
No.
And one of the fucking crew member is screaming, "Yeah, you in the camo, come on, let's get out of here. We can do this." And I know for a fact they were infected right round the corner, they're chasing his friend upstairs. So I'm sat there
Yeah.
like a child in 28 Days Later watching, four or five of them, but it feels like a horde of millions, right? Especially in the dark. They they chase this poor bear trap ridden man upstairs, and then I just calmly walk out without making a sound, and then we start to bolt. But then his friend's making loads of noise because he's with me and going, "Oh, we've got to do something, got to do something." My friend's in there, we've got to help him. I'm like, dude, he's fucked. I watched him get chased. He is gone. And it's like, no, 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 we're going back, we're going back. And at this point, we run into the Smileys. So there's do you want to? Is the ending point from your point of view? You're back at Bastion, and then the two NPCs come back.
No, so I think we started. Oh my gosh, no, I've just remembered. We started running, and you were left behind. So Mildred was like, "We can't leave Kyle. We've got to go back for Kyle." And I sort of had a bit of a breakdown to like Ben, and I was like, "We need to go back." And then Ed was like, "I'll go back." And then all of us were like, "Well, we can't just send Ed." So we start going back. We can't see you anywhere, so I'm convinced you're dead. Um, and then one of the NPCs shows up. He's like, "My friend's been like bitten. He's been downed." Um, and so we basically have to kill him because he's turned. and then we run, and then we get back to Bastion.
And one of those NPCs was definitely the ones we went out with.
Yes, yeah. I think this must have whatever happened to you
Oh
happened
yes,
while we were running to Bastion, and then when we came back, I think you must have got
you
free.
so we create more mess and then you come and clear it up. So yeah, okay, cool. No,
Yeah.
I've got the order of events now. So you guys bolt. In the meantime, I'm left behind. I link up with the one NPC who's not been bitten, and we find the Smileys. Now the Smileys have just I don't know what they've been up to, but they're still alive. And I go to them and like, yeah, blah blah blah. So what's just happened? And then some of the infected start to chase us
Oh
because
no.
they've been chasing you guys. They see all the torches, they hear us talking, and they start to bolt at us. So we run inside this other barracks block, this other H block, which is again houses 60 to 100 people. It's bloody massive. And we go into a room, and then all of a sudden the NPC who was upstairs earlier, who I saw get chased and bitten, bursts into the room and goes, "Oh fuck, that was close." Then he reunites with his other NPC friend who's with us, and the Smileys are kicking off like, "Who the fuck are these guys?" I'm like, "They're cool, they're cool," but I know for a fact he's been bitten.
Mm.
NPC who's not been bitten is adamant that he's fine, and I'm like, "Buddy, I watched it with my own eyes." Of course, the Smileys are listening in this conversation, and halfway through it, they actually execute. They stealth. There's a stealth kill mechanic. They stealth kill it to basically stab in the back the guy who's been infected.
Oh
At
dear.
this point, it kicks off because the other NPC is like, "You just killed my friend. What the fuck?" And he's yelling and yelling and yelling, and we know, and we can hear the infected outside starting to climb over walls and
No.
like start to smash on windows and stuff like that. We try and bail out one window, and there's an infected in the courtyard waiting for us. It rushes us. One of the Smileys with a guitar beats it down. Then we go back inside the room, and it's really kicking off. And then I think at that point we all manage to get out and we break out and we leg it into the woods, leaving behind the two NPCs. And we go back to Bastion with no further event. And I think we miss you guys because this is the point you come back in and you find the two NPCs, right?
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think there were two Smileys there as well. So I think I don't know if
Yeah,
they
it wouldn't
joined us
surprise me.
or if
Yeah.
yeah. Um, and he was one of the NPCs was really upset. He was like, "My friend's hurt." But he was clearly turning, or he was, writhing from where you guys had stabbed him. So we finished him off, and then we were just like, "Buddy, it was nice to meet you, but we're going." The funniest thing though is these two crew members throughout the weekend would come into Bastion with various offers, and later on they came up to me and Phil, and Phil, like I told him what happened when we went out, and Phil immediately handcuffed both of them, took their weapons, and Mr. White, who was one of the town's radio NPC, came up to us and he was like, "Go see, have you checked that these are actually the same guys as the ones you met?" And they weren't. They were completely playing as two different ones, and we just handcuffed two poor people that had come into Bastion because we were so traumatized. Um, but yeah, it was such a good start to the weekend. It really set up the danger, the the Traxia, and just how scary they are when they're up close. Because there's no stopping them if you're out of wind. If you don't have any energy, they're just going to take you.
Oh
Um,
gosh. And that comment will come back to haunt us on the Saturday afternoon.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Phew. But yeah, this is only the first 3 hours, maybe four, of the game. We get back from the bear trap encounter, tired, traumatized, terrified. We don't have any loot. Two people have died, and the infected are active. A victory, you could describe it
Yeah.
as.
But on the plus side, I think they got the Traxxas side at some point while we were out. Yeah, a very small victory,
Yes, yeah,
which we
someone else
missed
found it.
completely. So
Yeah, there was like a
yeah.
trade. There's like a
But
trade
there.
off happening, which was main plot that we didn't touch because we were eating dinner. If you're having dinner, expect to miss a skirmish because right at the end of this, we might do 2 or 3 episodes on this because we're running it around about 50 minutes now, and we've only done the first quarter of the actual story. There's some critiques like any LARP. One of them is going to be around seeding plot and how that gets communicated to players, but the chaos of it all, in my opinion, kind of adds to it. but you can easily miss out on quests if you're not like at the gate ready to go at all times, pretty much. We'd clearly missed
Feels
out
very.
on that, and someone had gone out and got some tracks aside.
Yeah, I actually think the people who went out, so during the town meeting on the Friday morning, there was a lovely Scottish guy who was like, I'll take it upon me to organise the gate rota. And then he went out and got killed. So the gate rota was a little up in the air Friday evening. And
Yeah,
I think that was his party that got the tracks aside. So
nice. A worthy
yeah,
death, because that tracks aside
worthy.
saved a lot of lives. Okay, I think from my notes, that brings me to the end of Friday, and we go to sleep, and it's not much sleep. I think it's about 3 a.m. by the time I get to sleep, and it's already starting to get a little bit light on the horizon, and the sun comes up at like 5:30 in the morning. So, uh, not too much darkness, not too much sleep. Anything eventful for you before the Saturday kicks off?
I don't think so. I was really excited the Friday evening because for me at this point it felt like a really cool sleepover with all my friends just outside and like the weather was nice so it wasn't cold. Um, we had good shelter. We were near like a pile of bees, but they didn't affect us at all because we left them alone. Um, and yeah, we watched the fire go out and we drifted away.
We did indeed, and that it's the looking at the fire and the absolute silence as people are sat there contemplating what's just happened to them, and the fact that this is only a few hours in and there's an even bigger army attacking us. We don't know what they've got or who they are or why they're doing it, but we have got a win. We have got the tracks aside, so things are. I think things are technically looking up for the Bastionites at this point in time.
Yeah, and I guess we leave it on that really happy note before it all goes downhill Saturday.
Yeah, I think we're running at 51 minutes, so I think we'll take a pause there and we'll do Saturday, um, decent chunk of it next time, and then we'll do another episode for the Sunday and like our closing comments and themes of the weekend because we this is actually our second attempt at recording this episode because I think Bastion is so special. It's unique on the market at the moment, and it's certainly appealing to those like hardcore LARPers. Like I don't think I've had a more immersive LARP. I've not done Legion before. I think that might be on the same level, but the there's no mechanics. There's no rules. There are mechanics, but otherwise it is you and your ability to survive and what you think you should do best, and you've got a total sandbox to play in, where the crew are available to enable that kind of survival horror. It's just 10 out of 10. Absolutely fantastic
In
experience.
from like a podcasting viewpoint, it's also really hard to track the events of the weekend because everything's so fast moving and you're always either out scavenging or you're doing something in camp and they bleed into each other so much. So we might get some of the things mixed up a little bit, but I think we've got a nice little graph here, so we should be all right.
Yeah. All right then. Well, thank you very much, dear survivors, for listening in to the part one of our Bastion coverage. We'll look forward to getting Empire Part 2 out. Well, sorry, Empire E2
Part
out.
one.
E2 Part 1. Bastion 2 Part 2. We also have Menhir's Fate 2 Part 2 to release as well. And we'll get there at some point. Bear with us. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll catch you next time for some more spooky, horrible survivor shit.
Ooh.
Ooh, bye,
Ooh.
bye, bye.